How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Donna Brazile exposing Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. Now, before we get into the article that's on the screen before you, which, by the way, is an excerpt from her upcoming book, I need to tell you who Donna Brazile is if you didn't already know. She's a very important person in the Democratic Party. If you were to ask me, hey, what did she do on a day-to-day basis for the Democratic Party? I really wouldn't be able to tell you too much. But what I do know is that she was a campaign manager for Al Gore back in the year 2000. When Jesse Jackson ran, she was involved with his campaign as well. This was way, way back in the day. And most recently, she was the interim chair of the Democratic Party. I think she got put in that role in 2015 or 2016. This was after Debbie Wasserman Schultz got ousted due to the whole WikiLeaks kerfuffle. In that situation, it was revealed that Wasserman Schultz was too cozy with Hillary Clinton. They were too much like besties, and then they were basically conspiring against Bernie Sanders, which is pretty interesting because I don't see why Donna Brazile is having a change of heart. I'm not really sure what happened because if you remember, March 13th, 2016, there was a town hall debate or some kind of event between Hillary and Bernie. Donna Brazile got a question early from Roland Martin because if you remember, it was a CNN joint hosting thing with TV One. You had Jake Tapper from CNN, and then you had Roland Martin from TV One. Roland Martin gave Donna Brazile a question, at least one question early, and she was able to give that to Hillary. So Hillary had an unfair advantage over Bernie, who did not have the same information, right? She was able to be prepared and knew how to answer the question, but Bernie was not. So it's interesting how now all of a sudden she went from getting questions, and then when she got pressed about it by Megyn Kelly, and I linked to that interview in the box below, she wants to deny it. And then she wrote some kind of article on Political again, as she's doing right here, as you see on the screen before you, talking about, well, I did, but she really still didn't admit it. So I say all that to say this. We know that the Democratic Party is corrupt. We know Donna Brazile can be corrupt as well. So when we read this article, some things may or may not be true, but either way, it's going to be very interesting. So let's jump straight into it. Inside Hillary Clinton's secret takeover of the DNC. When I was asked to run the Democratic Party after the Russians hacked our emails, you're going to hear that a lot because I remember when the whole thing happened with the debate question and Megyn Kelly was pressing her, she was talking about, oh, well, the emails are hacked, they're stolen, this, that, and the third. So she may rely on that whole thing to excuse herself in certain situations. So just be prepared for that. I stumbled onto a shocking truth about the Clinton campaign by Donna Brazile. This was today, November the 2nd of 2017. Before I called Bernie Sanders, I lit a candle in my living room and put on some gospel music. I wanted to center myself for what I knew would be an emotional phone call. I had promised Bernie when I took the helm of the Democratic National Committee after the convention that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process as a cache of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. And before we go any further, I did a video about this almost 2 years ago. This was about NGPVAN. This was like a voter information database that Hillary had access to and Bernie had access to. I think it was administered by the DNC. They were the ones that were behind it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it was a guy named Wasserman, a young kid, may have been a nephew who also worked at NGPVAN, but I digress for now. They locked him out of his information because one of his staffers found a vulnerability and he tried to alert the administrators by leaving breadcrumbs as he accessed it. But they were saying he was hacking the information, so they locked him out. So that basically meant that Bernie Sanders could not get hold of any kind of phone calls, any kind of email addresses, any kind of physical addresses to do any cold calling, to send any marketing materials, basically put him in the bind and put him in disadvantage. OK, that was just one thing of many. And I was saying that 2 years ago, but let's keep going in this article here. I'd had my suspicions from the moment I walked in the door of the DNC a month or so earlier based on the leaked emails. But who knew if some of them might have been forged? I needed to have solid proof, and so did Bernie. So I followed the money. My predecessor, Florida Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who we talked about quite a lot already, had not been the most active chair in fundraising at the time when President Barack Obama's neglect had left the party in significant debt. That's very interesting. She wants to attack Barack too. Okay, you got a disgruntled employee, perhaps? We'll see. As Hillary's campaign gained momentum, she resolved the party's debt and put it on a starvation diet. It had become dependent on her campaign for survival, for which she expected to wield control of its operations. Basically, she wanted to win and then be able to do whatever she wanted when she won. Debbie was not a good manager. She hadn't been very interested in controlling the party. She let Clinton's headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired, so she didn't have to inform the party officers how bad the situation was. How much control Brooklyn had and for how long was still something I had been trying to uncover for the last few weeks. By September 7th, the day I called Bernie, I had found my proof and it broke my heart. The Saturday morning after the convention in July, I called Gary Gensler, the chief financial officer of Hillary's campaign. He wasted no words. He told me the Democratic Party was broke and $2 million in debt. What? I screamed. I'm an officer of the party and they've been telling us everything is fine and they were raising money with no problems. That wasn't true, he said. Officials from Hillary's campaign had taken a look at the DNC's books. Obama left the party $24 million in debt, $15 million in bank debt, and more than $8 million owed to vendors after the 2012 campaign, and had been paying them off very slowly. Obama's campaign was not scheduled to pay it off until 2016. Hillary for America, the campaign, and the Hillary Victory Fund, its joint fundraising vehicle with the DNC, had taken care of 80% of the remaining debt in 2016, about $10 million, and had placed the party on an allowance. See, what it seems like to me is that Barack Obama was like, look, okay, we're not going to be able to pay all this money, so we're going to give it to Hillary for her to pay it. So it's like passing the torch. That's why he's going to be out there campaigning for her, because it's much more than just wanting to preserve the party. It's about, look, we got this money we got to pay off, so you need to pay it. I'm going to help you in the best way I can. I'm going to come to fundraisers or whatever to pay off my own debt. If I didn't know about this, I assumed that none of the other officers knew about it either. That was just Debbie's way. In my experience, she didn't come to the officers of the DNC for advice and counsel. She seemed to make decisions on her own and let us know at the last minute when she had decided, as she had done when she told us about the hacking only minutes before the Washington Post broke the news. Very interesting. On the phone, Gary told me that the DNC had needed a $2 million loan, which the campaign had arranged. No, that can't be true, I said. The party cannot take out a loan without the unanimous agreement of all the officers, which means that she didn't know anything. She was there basically as a figurehead. It's like, look, the party is going to run whether you here or not. You just a figurehead. You have no power here, basically. Okay. Hillary's going to run it. Debbie's going to run it. Whoever else is going to run it. You're just going to be here doing whatever, not really having to say so, essentially. Gary, how did they do this without me knowing? I asked. I don't know how Debbie relates to the officers, Gary said. He described the party as fully under the control of Hillary's campaign, which seemed to confirm the suspicions of the Bernie camp. The campaign had the DNC on life support, giving it money every month to meet its basic expenses, while the campaign was using the party as a fundraising clearinghouse. Under FEC law, an individual can contribute a maximum of $2,700 directly to a presidential campaign, but the limits are much higher for contributions to state parties and a party's national committee. So basically, rather than having the money being given to Hillary Clinton's campaign, she's using the DNC as her campaign. Okay, so that explains why Bernie Sanders was railroaded, because look, if the DNC is now Hillary Clinton's campaign, then why would I be supporting somebody else? It's just like the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign officially endorsing Bernie. It's like if John Podesta, who was the 2016 campaign chair for Hillary, came out and endorsed Bernie. That would not make any sense because you work for Hillary. That's how the DNC was at this time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about money. It's like, look, Hillary has the money. She's going to pay it off. It's her party. That's what we're going to do. That's how it's arranged. Individuals who max out their $2,700 contribution limit to the campaign could write an additional check for $353,400 to the Hillary Victory Fund. That figure represented $10,000 to each of the 32 states parties who were part of the Victory Fund agreement, $320,000 and $33,400 to the DNC. The money will be deposited in states first and transferred to the DNC shortly after that. Money in the battleground states usually stay in that state, but all other states funneled that money directly to the DNC, which quickly transferred the money to Brooklyn. Wait, I said, the Victory Fund was supposed to be for whoever was the nominee and the state party races. You're telling me that Hillary has been controlling it since before she got a nomination. Of course, she got the money. She has the control. Gary said the campaign had to do it or the party would collapse. That was the deal that Robbie struck with Debbie, he explained, referring to campaign manager Robbie Mook. It was to sustain the DNC. We sent the party nearly $20 million from September until the convention and more to prepare for the election. What's the burn rate, Gary? I asked. How much money do we need every month to fund the party? The burn rate was $3.5 million to $4 million each month, he said. I gasped. I had a pretty good sense of the DNC's operation after having served as interim chair for 5 years earlier. Back then, the monthly expenses were half that. What had happened? The party chair usually shrinks the staff between presidential election campaigns, but Debbie had chosen not to do that. She had stuck lots of consultants on the DNC payroll, and Obama's consultants were being financed by the DNC too. I think at the end of the day, everybody's getting money. You know, it's a golden goose. It's a golden cow. You're milking it for all it has. The expenses do not have to be that high, but look, everybody is trying to get a Rolex. Everybody's trying to get a fancy car. Everybody trying to live in Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax County, live, you know, in a big house on the hill. That's what that is. That's why Washington, D.C. has so much money in its vicinity, like the surrounding area, also D.C. itself, because of all the money that is being siphoned through D.C. in a semi-corrupt way. When we hung up, I was livid, not at Gary, but at this mess I had inherited. I knew that Debbie had outsourced a lot of the management of the party and had not been the greatest at fundraising. I would not be that kind of chair, even if I was only an interim chair. Did they think I would just be a surrogate for them, get on the road and rouse up the crowds? Yes. Well, not even that. You just there to just to be there. You're not there for anything else. Rouse up the crowds. I'm not really sure Donna Brazile is the rouse up the crowd kind of person, but I digress. I was going to manage this party the best I could and try to make it better. Even if Brooklyn did not like this, it would be weeks before I would fully understand the financial shenanigans that were keeping the party on life support. Right around the time of the convention, elite emails revealed Hillary's campaign was grabbing money from the state parties for its own purposes, leaving the states with very little to support down ballot races. A political story published on May 2nd, 2016, described the big fundraising vehicle she had launched through the states the summer before, quoting a vow she had made to rebuild the party from the ground up. When our states' parties are strong, we win. That's what happens. Yet the states kept less than half of the percent of the 82 million they had amassed from the extravagant fundraisers Hillary's campaign was holding, just as Gary had described to me when I talked in August with him. When a political story described this arrangement as essentially money laundering for the Clinton campaign, Hillary's people were outraged at being accused of doing something shady. I mean, come on. Everybody knows what it is. It's not really hard to tell. Bernie's people were angry for their own reasons, saying this was part of a calculated strategy to throw the nomination to Hillary. Of course, she has the money. She's raising all the money. She's keeping the DNC afloat. You already know what it is. I wanted to believe Hillary, who made campaign finance reform part of her platform, but I made this pledge to Bernie and did not want to disappoint him. I kept asking the party lawyers and the DNC staff to show me the arrangements that the party had made for sharing the money that they raised, but there was a lot of shuffling and feet and looking the other way. When I got back from a vacation in Martha's Vineyard, I at last found a document that described it all, the joint fundraising agreement between the DNC, Hillary Victory Fund, and Hillary for America. The agreement, signed by Amy Dacey, the former CEO of the DNC, and Robbie Mook with a copy to Mark Elias, specified that in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary will control the party's finances, strategy, and the money it raised. Her campaign had the right of refusal of who would be the party communications director, and it would make final decisions on all other staff. The DNC also was required to consult with the campaigns about all other staffing, budgeting, data, analytics, and mailings. Basically, she controls the whole thing. And the thing about data, analytics, and mailings, that goes back to the whole NGP VAN thing I talked about 2 years ago. I did a video about that. I linked to that in the box below, where I said that the DNC, which basically was Hillary's campaign management group, they kept Bernie Sanders out of that information data because it was a way to get him out of the way. If he cannot get access to his data that he needs to do cold calls, emails, snail mails, or whatever, it makes it harder for him to actually win. I've been wondering why it was that I couldn't write a press release without passing it by Brooklyn. Well, here was the answer. When the party chooses a nominee, the custom is that the candidate's team starts to exercise more control over the party. If the party has an incumbent candidate, as was the case with Clinton in 1996 or Obama in 2012, this kind of arrangement is seamless because the party is already under control of the president. When you have an open contest without an incumbent and competitive primaries, the party comes under the candidate's control only after the nominee is certain. When I was manager of Al Gore's campaign in 2000, we started inserting our people into the DNC in June. This victory fund agreement, however, had been signed in August of 2015, just 4 months after Hillary announced her candidacy and nearly a year before she officially had the nomination. I tried to search out any other evidence of internal corruption that would show that the DNC was rigging the system to throw the primary to Hillary, but I could not find any in party affairs or among the staff. I had gone department by department investigating individual conduct for evidence of skewed decisions, and I was happy to see that I found none. Then I found this agreement. The funding agreement with the HFA and the Victory Fund agreement was not illegal, but it sure looked unethical. Of course, that's what they do. They get just beyond the scope of ethics, but they don't go up to the line of illegality. They got lawyers and stuff like that that write the agreements out. It ain't like Hillary Clinton is sitting there on a toilet or whatever, writing this agreement on some tissue paper. They have lawyers that get paid to do just that. So when you're talking about legal stuff, it's hard to really prove any kind of illegality if it gets discovered, which is hard to discover because you got all kind of layers of red tape blocking the discovery of things like this. But I digress. If the fight had been fair, one campaign would not have control over the party before the voters had decided which one they wanted to lead. This was not a criminal act, but as I saw it, it compromises the party's integrity. I had to keep my promise to Bernie. I was in agony and I doubted him. Keeping this secret was against everything I stood for, all that I value as a woman, as a public servant. Hello, Senator. I've completed my review of the DNC and I did find the cancer. I said, but I would not kill the patient. I discussed the fundraising agreement that each of the candidates had signed. Bernie was familiar with it, but he and his staff ignored it. They had their own way of raising money through small donations. I described how Hillary's campaign had taken it another step. I told Bernie that I found Hillary's joint fundraising agreement. I explained that the cancer was that she had exerted this control over the party long before she became the nominee. Had I known this, I never would have accepted the interim chair position. But here we were with only weeks before the election. Bernie took this stoically. He did not yell or express outrage. Instead, he asked me what I thought Hillary's chances were. The polls were unanimous in her winning, but what he wanted to know was my own assessment. I had to be frank with him. I did not trust the polls, I said. I told him I had visited states around the country, and I found a lack of enthusiasm for her everywhere. Exactly. I said the same thing. I agree with her on that. There was zero enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton. There was a lot for Trump, and maybe even more for Bernie. Some would say that Bernie may have been able to win, but I doubt it because you got to be able to win certain states, and that whole pesky electoral college thing would come into play, but I'm gonna move on. I was concerned about the Obama coalition and about millennials. I urged Bernie to work as hard as he could to bring his supporters into the fold with Hillary. That's very interesting. You want this whole big long article, maybe even a whole big book about how corrupt Hillary is, but then you say that he should support her anyway, and to campaign with all the heart and hope he could muster. He might find some of her positions to be too centrist and her coziness with the financial elites distasteful, but he knew, and I knew, that the alternative was a person who would put the very future of our country in peril. A little Trump dig in there. Had to get that in there, huh? I knew he hurt me. I knew he agreed with me, but I never in my life have felt so tiny and powerless as I did making that call. When I hung up the call to Bernie, I started to cry, not out of guilt, but out of anger. We could go forward. We had to. Okay, that's the end of that. That's very interesting article from Donna Brazile from her upcoming book. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel no sympathy for her. In this piece, she was like, oh, I was crying. I felt so tiny. It's like, look, you know what it is. You know how corrupt the Democratic Party is. You, Donna Brazile, are corrupt yourself, getting questions early, helping Hillary. You make it seem as if you are like trying to expose Hillary and the Democratic Party, but really you just talking about your own personal situation, about how you were not able to be included on certain matters, because the question has to be this. If you were included on certain decisions that were brought to the table, would you really object if it meant that you were able to keep your job, or if Bernie was able to win, or if we thought things were fair? you're expressing concern about how you think things are, but I'm not really sure you would take a lot of steps to prevent things from going the wrong way. I think you'd be complicit at whatever is happening because, like I said, you had no problem basically cheating for Hillary Clinton. So what's the big deal now? Don't cry now. You were involved with it. You know what it is. And you already know that the Democratic Party is pretty much dead anyway. Without Hillary, it would have just been buried. There would have been no chance that anybody else could have won without Hillary Clinton's money. That's the truth. So you have to look, when you engaging in crime, when you engaging in any kind of wrong activity, in order for you to keep things afloat that were built with that activity, you got to keep doing more activity. OK, why did Obama get in there and not do any fundraising? Why was there not any kind of oversight to the whole situation? It's because there was no need. Everybody knew that it was going to be Hillary. Look, it was given to Hillary. OK, it had been set up long before that, years before 2015, when she found out that she filed paperwork or whatever. It had already been decided in Obama's second term. It's like, OK, when I'm done, I'll give it to you. So everything was already set up. All the money and all that was pretty much charged on credit, essentially, because everybody knew that Hillary would be able to raise that money in the next cycle. So it will all be paid off. Bernie was just like irrelevant. He was there as window dressing. The same thing as Martin O'Malley. Matter of fact, Bernie got kind of close to her. That's when they did things like the primary rigging, the improbable coin tosses. I think it was like 4 or 6 coin tosses that had to get flipped to decide whether it can be Bernie or Hillary in certain primaries. And then I think all 6 went for Hillary. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? I knew back then that it was some stuff going on. And then before that, with the whole NGP-VAN thing, it was little things here and there to keep Bernie away from overtaking Hillary in the polls and favorability. That's what it was. And like I said, it was all planned years ago. It's nothing new. So I'm not surprised. So what do you think? Do you think that Donna Brazile has exposed the Democratic Party and also Hillary Clinton? Do you think Donna Brazile was complicit with the whole thing? So she can't really be, the victim here. Do you think what was done had to happen because the Democratic Party had no money? And without money, how are you going to do anything? Do you think it's okay because they did what they did in the name of trying to defeat Trump? Is that okay? How do you feel about Bernie? Were you a Bernie supporter? How do you feel about knowing this now about the Democratic Party, about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, about Hillary Clinton, about Donna Brazile? Donna Brazile wants to be painted as some kind of political justice warrior. That's the SJW alternative, political justice warrior, trying to help Bernie, all this, that, and the third. But like I said, she was complicit because she gave Hillary Clinton a question early during the town hall in which she was opposing Bernie Sanders that helped her get the advantage over Bernie. OK, so on one hand, she wants to help Bernie. On the other hand, she's hurting him. Then at the end of the piece, you see that she said to support her. So it's like, what's really going on? But whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.